Upon waking up, Yuan realized that he had been reborn 10 years ago, so he sold all the assets left by his parents and was hailed by the financial industry as the wealthiest second generation. However, no one will know that in 3 months, global evolution, extraterritorial invasion, and money will become worthless. At the same time, mastering the opportunities of the next decade, Yuan began to crazily lay out. Spend hundreds of millions to purchase the tree of Shakyamuni's enlightenment and the ancient Bodhi tree, and after awakening, gain billions of talents. The complete version of the Tao Te Ching, auctioned overseas for a sky-high price of 30 million yuan, awakens the universe's visualization map, and claims to be the world's first concept. Buying a farm for a large sum of money, a meteorite falls from the sky, and after awakening, it contains a sword embryo from outside the sky, known as the Great Luo magic weapon and the Supreme Flying Sword. In this way, the financial industry has lost a wealthy second generation, and the entertainment industry has gained a mysterious buyer. Until 3 months later, a disaster struck and Yuan was invincible in the world. Holding the heavenly sword child and carrying the Bodhi divine tree, one can imagine the vastness of the universe, with invincible divine souls and a physical body like a dragon. Under the immortal, I am invincible, and above the immortal, I exchange one for another. Novel keywords. Global awakening. Only I plan ahead for the future without pop-ups, global awakening. Only I plan ahead for the future. Download the complete TXT collection, Global Awakening. Only I plan ahead for the future. Read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Rebirth and Return, Bodhi Ancient Tree. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Rebirth and Return, Bodhi Ancient Tree, International Summary. The ancient Bodhi tree was stolen half a month ago. Legend has it that Shakyamuni once became a Buddha under this tree and was revered as a national treasure of India. The Indian authorities attach great importance to it and have ordered the security department to establish an investigation team. World Wonder. A water monster has been discovered again in Lake Nice. A hiker has released photos, which preliminarily determine that it is at least 100 meters long. After expert appraisal, all photos have obvious traces of processing, and the person involved has apologized. Financial Weekly. Recently, a mysterious wealthy man in Shanghai sold a large amount of stocks and properties, cashing out nearly 10 billion yuan, and it is still ongoing. Financial experts say that the domestic economy is stable and improving in the short term, and this move will cause him to lose at least hundreds of millions in the next 6 months. July 18, 2025. Shanghai City, a private port. Yuan browsed through the news on his phone with a calm expression. Almost done. Yuan turned off his phone and took out a telescope to look ahead. At this moment, on the distant sea level, a ferry slowly appeared, carrying only one container. Upon closer inspection, one could still see that the container was covered with seals, seemingly containing something extremely valuable. Half an hour later, the ferry sailed in and anchored before stabilizing at the port. Quickly, dozens of people wearing black clothes and sunglasses walked down. The leader is a tall bald man with thick muscles, with a black centipede tattooed on his neck, extending all the way to his face. His eyes are still cold, and standing there gives a strong sense of oppression. Baldy walked closer and took off his sunglasses, saying, "Mr. Liu, this trip almost cost me several brothers. When do you think the final payment will be paid?" "About half an hour at most." Yuan smiled with a calm expression and continued, "The reputation of the Centipede organization is renowned internationally. Who dares to default on it?" Bald-headed, he looked at the young man in front of him who was clearly in his early 20s but unusually calm. He nodded and said, "With Mr. Liu's words, I can rest assured. Since that's the case, Mr. Liu will come with me to inspect the goods on the ship first. If there are no problems, I will unload the ship." "Okay." Yuan nodded. Immediately, the two boarded the ship, and the seal of the container was torn open. With a sound of metal friction, the door opened. Among them, there is undoubtedly an ancient tree that has been uprooted, at least exceeding 10 meters in length. The roots, branches, and buds, as well as the emerald green leaves, seem to have only been dug out recently. But at this moment, he is lying quietly inside the container. Seeing this, the bald man sighed and said, "I really don't know what you wealthy people are thinking, spending so much money just for a broken tree." Upon hearing this, Yuan shook his head gently and said, "This is not an ordinary tree, it is the ancient Bodhi tree of Buddha Shakyamuni's enlightenment." That's right. The theft of the ancient Bodhi tree, the national treasure of India, was done by someone he hired. The bald man beside Yuan is the leader of the top 3 international thief organizations, known as the 1,000-Foot Centipede. It is said that as long as the price is affordable, there is nothing that cannot be obtained. And for this trip, he spent nearly 100 million in total. But as long as you get the things. In Yuan's view, everything is worth it. Because he is a reborn person. In memory, more than 2 months later, on the evening of September 1, 2025, there will be a global upheaval. Various myths and legends will descend on the earth, with monsters, spirits, and so on emerging endlessly. A new era has begun. At that time, the world will no longer be dominated by money, but by the law of the fittest, with the strong taking precedence. Some awaken, acquire the body of thunder, control thunder and lightning, some return to their ancestors with unparalleled talent, some carry their backs and wings, soaring into the sky. The ancient Bodhi tree will also change at that moment, becoming an unparalleled divine object. After being refined, it can directly increase its talent by billions of times, and waste wood can directly become a genius. The benefits are unimaginable. In front of it, 100 million is not even worth a pile of waste paper. In his previous life, Yuan was so slow because he knew it too late that he took slow steps. In the end, unable to keep up with the pace of the new era, being killed by someone and bleeding the earth. And in this lifetime, Yuan was reborn 3 months before the mutation, and had a chance to do it again. So he wants to lay out the future before the global upheaval. In this life, he wants to be ahead of everyone. In this life, he wants to dominate the world. No matter what tree it is, money is the most important thing. Baldy didn't know what Yuan was thinking, so he stopped and said, "Since Mr. Liu has confirmed everything is correct, can we unload the goods now?" "Sure." Yuan naturally couldn't explain, so he smiled and walked off the ferry. Soon, the container containing the ancient Bodhi tree was unloaded and loaded onto a truck. The truck was prepared by him long ago, without a driver, and he would personally drive it. In order to prevent accidents from happening and be discovered, Yuan did a lot of preparation work in the early stage, such as buying this port not long ago, and all the cameras were already dismantled. You should know that this thing is different from others and belongs to the national treasure of India, carrying various myths and legends. Even with Yuan's current assets, once discovered, it would still be a big problem. As for bald people, what they are doing is illegal in itself, so it is naturally impossible for them to reveal it. The final payment has been reversed. At this moment, the bald person next to him looked at the balance displayed on his phone and suddenly showed a smile. Working with Mr. Liu is really enjoyable. If there is still a chance, please let me know at any time. Although the ancient Bodhi tree is a national treasure, the official security measures in India have not been implemented. After all, who would have thought that someone would have the idea of building a tree? So for centipede tissue. Although this business may seem a bit strange, it is still relatively easy and there is still a lot of money. He longed for Yuan's brain to come back a few more times, and as for what he said before about almost losing a few brothers, it was just a joke. Definitely. Yuan smiled and shook hands with the other party, then climbed onto the truck and started driving out of the port. The Centipede organization bald-headed and a group of members did not linger and quickly left. Late at night. In the northern part of Shanghai, there is a huge mountain forest that is rarely visited by people. However, in the central area, there is a 3-story villa. Inside the villa, the lights are brightly lit and the decoration is luxurious. Outside, there is a towering and thick wall, several meters long, surrounding the entire villa. The lights are completely opaque and it looks very mysterious. At this moment, Lu Yuan, who had been busy all day, sat back in the lobby on the first floor dragging his tired body. After pouring a glass of red wine casually, he turned his gaze to the courtyard outside. There, the ancient Bodhi trees brought back from the port have been planted and a large amount of water has been poured to keep the land moist. In fact, Lu Yuan knew that this tree could live for thousands of years, and even if he didn't do it, there wouldn't be any problems. However, adhering to the mindset of putting all caution first. He doesn't come up with any questions. Ding-ling-ling. At this moment, Lu Yuan's phone suddenly rang, and when he picked it up, it turned out to be a foreign number. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Complete version of the Tao Te Ching, layout for the future. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Complete version of the Tao Te Ching, layout for the future. Hello. Lu Yuan picked up his phone to answer and responded. Mr. Lu. A heavy voice came from the receiver. I just got off the plane, and all the procedures have been completed. Well, the Christie's pass has been processed and the hotel has been booked. There is enough money on that card. Remember, no matter what, you must get your things and feel free to contact us if you have any questions. Lu Yuan's voice was calm, and he explained many things in one breath. Christie's. One of the most famous auction houses in the world. The auction brings together rare artworks from all over the world. And this auction happened to have something that Lu Yuan needed. So he found a professional and asked the other party to go abroad to get the things. Yes, Mr. Lu. After responding and asking a few more questions, he hung up the phone. Lu Yuan took a sip of red wine, opened his phone album, and pulled out a few photos. The photo shows a yellowed ancient Chinese book, but not in ordinary Chinese script. It is an oracle bone script from ancient times, which has been identified by foreign experts in ancient Chinese literature and is suspected to be related to Laozi's Tao Te Ching, dating back at least 2,000 years. Unearthed in China 100 years ago, it later flowed overseas due to war and was acquired by Christie's after several twists and turns. Not long ago, it was announced that it will soon become one of the many auctions this time. Originally, this kind of thing will definitely cause heated discussions in China. However, Chinese experts believe that the book may have been forged by the ancients, because regardless of the word count, chapters, or content, it differs significantly from the surviving Tao Te Ching, and its research value is not significant except for its age. But only Lu Yuan knew that Christie's book was the complete version of the Tao Te Ching. People believe that this book only has 81 chapters. But in reality, there are 108 chapters. What has been passed down in China is only a remnant, and the most important part has long been missing. After the global upheaval in the previous life, Lu Yuan, who had long been reduced to a small role, had heard of the complete version of the Tao Te Ching, which had the great ability to comprehend. It refined the physical body and soul to the extreme, with power to shake the stars and soul to communicate with the gods. Walking in the star domain, it was a true supreme scripture, worth no less than the ancient Bodhi tree in India. Since I have decided to make up for the shortcomings in this life and strive for the highest position, the complete version of the Tao Te Ching is definitely an indispensable part. The ancient Bodhi tree cost nearly 100 million, and the Christie's team at least tens of millions. If it were an ordinary person, it would really be unbearable. Turning off his phone, Lu Yuan couldn't help but sigh. Just like before Rebirth. He is now also a wealthy second generation. My parents died in a car accident a year ago, leaving behind billions of assets. The difference is that in the previous life, after inheriting the family business, the self only knew how to squander without considering the future at all. Although this property was enough to support him for a lifetime of extravagance, later there was a global upheaval where power was paramount and the law of the fittest prevailed. No amount of money became worthless and of no use. In his previous life, Lu Yuan went from being an unrestrained wealthy second generation to becoming a minor character. Even though there were some encounters, there was no way to change anything at all. Having experienced the law of the jungle. After the era of dignity being trampled upon at will. He clearly knows how important strength is. Without strength, he is willing to be bullied. So after being reborn and returning, Lu Yuan immediately began to plan for the future, selling various properties, crazily cashing out, and lowering prices at all costs. The mysterious Shanghai tycoon who sold a large amount of stocks and properties in the news before was also himself. This move is undoubtedly considered extremely foolish by outsiders. After all, the assets left behind by his parents are all benign assets. Selling it means losing at least a few million in a day. But Lu Yuan doesn't care. After more than a month of global upheaval, how much wealth is useless? In the new era, what we are fighting for is not money, but ourselves. For example, the villa I am currently living in is also one of my legacies. I bought it for the sake of peace and tranquility. After returning from his rebirth, he underwent some renovations with the aim of having a silently prepared base in the future. Now that the ancient Bodhi tree has been obtained, there should be no surprises in the complete version of the Tao Te Ching. The next step is the other supernatural objects after the mutation. Lu Yuan sank his mind rapidly spinning, and one plan after another emerged. That's right, just these two things are not enough. He wants to collect as many supreme artifacts as he knows before the mutation. In this way, it is only after the arrival of a new era that I am able to cope with all possible crises. Then step by step, walk ahead of everyone. Buzzing. At this moment, the phone suddenly shook, interrupting Lu Yuan's thoughts. Pick it up and see, it's his class group chat during his college years. Li Sisi. It's almost the first anniversary of graduation, and our classmates haven't gathered for a long time. Prince Bo. Yes, at Li Hansheng, does the class monitor have any plans? Li Hansheng. Of course, I have already booked a room at the Yunzhong Hotel for a fun and enjoyable meal. Everyone must remember to come. Li Sisi. Wow, isn't that the best 5-star hotel in Shanghai? It costs tens of thousands of dollars a day, but the class monitor is spending too much money. Chen Song. At Li Hansheng, the class monitor, do we have to pay a portion of the money? Li Hansheng. No need, Zhou Yunxiong will also be here this time. Yunzhong Hotel is her family's industry, and we have already made arrangements. Everyone just needs to enjoy themselves. Wang Zibo. What and what? Goddess Zhou Yunxiong is coming. Then I definitely won't be absent. Chen Song. Me too. It's been a long time since I saw Zhou. Zhang Wei. It will definitely arrive. Zhao Pengfei, +1. Xian Gang, +1. A group of male classmates, +1. Li Sisi. Look, I heard that Yun Qiong is coming, and everything is bubbling up. This is your boy's face. Li Hansheng. Li Sisi, what do you say? The happiest person is not us, it should be someone who is right. Wang Zibo. Here at Lu Yuan. Classmates. Here at Lu Yuan Li Sisi. Yes, Mr. Lu has been in love with Yun Qiong for 4 years. I'm afraid he's going to get excited now, right? Li Hansheng. At Lu Yuan, don't be invisible, come out and make a bubble whether you go or not. Looking at a bunch of messages on my phone. Lu Yuan shook his head and threw his phone aside. If he had been interested in this kind of thing in his previous life and would have responded enthusiastically, but now he doesn't care at all because time is tight and so-called classmate gatherings are completely meaningless to him. As for the girl I like, after experiencing global upheaval and various bloody battles, Lu Yuan has long neglected this aspect of emotions. There is no need for a reply. Just as he was about to get up and leave, his eyes suddenly twitched. Immediately picked up the phone again, opened the chat app, and slowly typed a word. Go. The reason for changing his mind is very simple. He thought of something he needed that was related to this classmate opportunity, so he had to go. Complete these. Lu Yuan stopped thinking. Turning around, I walked directly into the fitness area of the villa and started exercising. There is still over a month before the global upheaval, and he has a lot to do before that. For example, some divine objects cannot be bought by sitting at home and must be personally visited. Some places are also very dangerous, so Lu Yuan must have a strong physique to do so. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. What money can solve is not a problem. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. What money can solve is not a problem. A few days later in the morning, Lu Yuan exercised as usual, washing away all his fatigue. Enjoying breakfast at the table, the TV in the living room was buzzing with sound. 3 days ago, after climbing to the top of Mount Taishan, a passenger said that he saw 10,000 rays of sunshine in the clouds, and the sky palace appeared in the rays. This caused a heated discussion among netizens, and it was later identified as a mirage. There has been another earthquake in the Sichuan-Chongqing region, but the tremor is relatively small. Relevant departments have organized rescue teams to go there, and there have been no casualties so far. The eastern part of the Taihang Mountains has been shrouded in fog recently, and 2 tourist groups have lost contact. Experts say caution should be taken when traveling in the near future. Perhaps the global upheaval has already begun, but it has not attracted much attention. Listening to the news broadcast on TV, Lu Yuan began to ponder in his heart. These things may seem ordinary, but they don't provoke much thought. But if you think carefully now, it seems to contain many secrets, representing some kind of omen. Perhaps the authorities have long been aware of it and have been secretly preparing, but in order to maintain stability, they have suppressed those unusual things. At this point in his thoughts, a sense of urgency couldn't help but emerge in Lu Yuan's heart. There was still more than a month left, and time could not be considered tense. So I must take action as soon as possible and seize every opportunity. Ding-ling-ling. And at this moment, the phone rang again. Lu Yuan took a look and the caller ID showed that it was Manager Zhang of Rongsheng Real Estate. Without hesitation, he answered directly. Hello, is that Mr. Lu? I'm Xiao Zhang from Rongsheng. A voice came from across, very polite. The farm you purchased in the suburbs of Wuzhou has completed all the procedures and the property rights contract has been drafted. That's it. What is it? Lu Yuan frowned. That person suddenly raised the price. The land, which was originally 20 million yuan, now costs 25 million yuan. Manager Zhang hesitated a bit and continued, that piece of land is not worth this price at all. Do you think you should wait a little longer so that I can help you lower the price? No need, it's only 25 million. You guys should handle it as soon as possible, Lu Yuan said in a calm voice. Ah, good, Mr. Lu, don't worry, I promise to do it well in the next few days. The other party stuttered for a moment and worked as a real estate agent for so many years. He had not yet met such a satisfying buyer. Without hesitation, he agreed directly with 5 million. But I quickly realized that the more money I have, the higher my commission will be. But soon, Manager Zhang continued, also, Mr. Lu, you may need to come over and sign a letter. I have fully entrusted the matter to Rongsheng. Just help me sign the contract. Are you sure you won't come in person? Lawyer Xiao Zhang across from me seems a bit incredulous. More than 20 million yuan, it's not a small matter. Just let someone sign on behalf of you. Are wealthy people so stubborn? Sure, once it's done, just send the contract to the address I gave you. Rongsheng is a big company, I can rest assured that you will handle things like this. After speaking, Lu Yuan hung up the phone directly. I have limited time now and cannot waste any time, and it seems that I have not taken this matter to heart at all. What is tens of millions worth? Far less valuable than the farm in his eyes. In my memory, soon after, there will be a rare meteor shower in Wuzhou city that will last 1,000 years. The most important one will fall from the starry sky to the ground, located within the farm I purchased. And in that extraterrestrial meteorite, there is a supreme sword embryo that belongs to the extraterrestrial divine object, which is difficult to find in the world and cannot be measured by any amount of money. This is an important reason why even if Lu Yuan increases the price, he will still take the farm. At that time, he can go and search for it as soon as possible. After finishing these, he opened his phone again, found a name from the chat app, and typed a line of characters. Lu Yuan. Lawyer Wang, have you contacted Long Hushan yet? The news came quickly, almost instantly. Lawyer Wang. Hello Mr. Lu, I have already been in contact, but there are still some issues. Lu Yuan. If it's because of money, that's not a problem. I can add it. Lawyer Wang. Not really. It's mainly because the Taoist priests in Longhu Mountain find it difficult to communicate and say that there have been many donations recently, which makes you wait. Lu Yuan. 10 million, you continue to talk. Lawyer Wang. Okay. The chat is over. Upon seeing this smile, Lu Yuan immediately thought of Longhu Mountain. Longhu Mountain is the ancestral home of Taoism, with many mythological elements. Especially after the global upheaval, its status has continued to grow and many big figures have emerged. Of course, the reason why Lu Yuan donated so much money was not to establish a good relationship with Longhu Mountain in advance or seek shelter, but for something more important. A wordless stone tablet. The stone tablet contains an unparalleled Taoist supernatural power, which is extremely powerful. In the previous life, someone used this power to dominate the world, sweeping across the 8 wildernesses and achieving great success. Of course, apart from Lu Yuan, there is no second person in the world who knows. I just want to take advantage of this and get the nameless stone tablet in advance. According to the rules of Longhu Mountain, if someone donates a certain amount, a personal monastic dojo can be designated within Longhu Mountain. And the stone tablet was very heavy, so he couldn't take it away with great fanfare. He could only use a large donation to first include the stone tablet within the scope of the dojo, and then think of other methods. However, for Lu Yuan, as long as it is a problem that can be solved with money, then it is not a problem. The land in Wuzhou and the donation from Longhu Mountain should be almost ready in the early stage once these two things are completed. Lu Yuan let out a deep breath, and now it's just the beginning. He still has a series of unfulfilled plans, which can definitely be considered a race against time. Otherwise, we wouldn't have entrusted everything to others to handle. And after completing these tasks, Lu Yuan still needs to leave Shanghai, which is indeed a lack of skills for his clone. I didn't think much. I checked the time on my phone and it was almost 9 o'clock. He immediately quickened his pace of eating breakfast. After tidying up a bit, he walked out of the living room and headed to the garage. There is only one car in the garage, the latest version of Mercedes-Benz 2025 G63, with a market price of around 4 million yuan. Of course, this number is completely insignificant in front of Lu Yuan's value, and the reason for purchasing it is simply because it feels cheap and practical. I don't know what would happen if those people saw me using this car to attend a classmate gathering. Lu Yuan shook his head and thought. In fact, he was exceptionally low-key and average in all aspects during his college years. The reason is that his parents have a concept of raising children from poverty, believing that exposure to too much money too early will corrode his soul and hinder his growth. As a result, Lu Yuan's college classmates believe that his family is just a working class. Insert the key and start the car. Lu Yuan drove away from the villa. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Classmates Gathering, Possible Rental Cars. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Classmates Gathering, Possible Rental Cars. Shanghai City. Although it is not as long as the ancient capital of the six dynasties like Jinling, but due to its unique conditions, the economy has taken off in the past century and is now known as the Magic City. The Yunzhong Hotel is located in the inner ring of Shanghai, covering an extremely wide area with extremely luxurious decoration. At this moment, dozens of young people are gathered at the entrance of the hotel. Li Sisi, you have become beautiful again. If I had known earlier, I would have targeted you in college. Maybe you are already married now, a young man in casual wear with a slightly dark skin joked. It's not too late for you to start now, Prince Bo. I'll tell you quietly that Sisi doesn't have a boyfriend yet. A girl spoke up, holding Li Sisi, who was standing on the side, with a lively expression on her face. What are you saying, Luo Xian? They're just old classmates. Li Sisi blushed slightly and spat. It has to be said that she looks really good, with fair skin, slender eyebrows, and a pair of tight jeans that give her a better figure. Haha, who said old classmates can't fall in love? The dark young man, also known as Wang Zibo, spoke with a smile on his face, although he said so. Sorry, I'm late. At this moment, a taxi appeared and a person got off. After seeing a few people, he quickly approached and said, "My house is a bit far away, and the road is also congested. I knew I had taken the subway. Chen Song, is it okay?" "It's okay, everyone hasn't arrived yet." Someone said, indicating that it's still early. "Yeah, I don't know how long we'll have to wait. It's just boring." "What did you do after graduation?" 1 year after graduation, there were people in their 20s and 40s present, and now naturally, the most concerning issue is work. However, compared to their original ambition, those who have been whipped by society for a year do not have the same morale as before. Most of them are ordinary, and of course, some have found a relatively good job through family connections. So soon, the chatting classmates unknowingly split into two small groups. A very lively event centered around Wang Zibo and Li Sisi. One was Chen Song and others, but they remained silent. What are everyone talking about? It's so lively. At this moment, a voice appeared and everyone turned their heads to look. But I saw a young man in a suit and leather shoes, wearing golden glasses, walking off a BMW with a smile on his face, resembling a successful person. It was Li Han who was promoted to class monitor. Wang Zibo was the first to see it, his eyes were shocked, and he quickly leaned over and touched the front hood. "Okay, class monitor, you've already driven a BMW. It seems like you're doing well after graduation. Where are you? Are you going to call Mr. Li now?" The other classmates also gathered around one by one, with curious expressions on their faces. "It's nothing, my relatives have opened a company, I'm just going to help." Li Hanqing lifted his glasses and said with a smile, "The car is only over 300,000 yuan, it's also provided by the company." His words may seem humble, but in reality, they carry a certain flaunt. His eyes involuntarily scan around, feeling the eager gaze around him and feeling a sense of satisfaction in his heart. That's over 300,000 yuan. With just my salary, I have to save for 2 years whether I eat or drink. Wang Zibo was somewhat envious. In fact, everyone around me is like this. After all, everyone has just graduated just a year ago. Some people even rent a house, but Li Hanqing drove a BMW. I will naturally look up. Even Li Sisi's eyes were full of brilliance, and he would occasionally initiate conversations. In fact, as a 5-star hotel, there are still quite a few luxury cars driving in and out of Yunzhong Hotel. However, for these people, they are still far away from themselves, and the people Li Hanqing really knows naturally have different attitudes. Alright, don't chat outside the door, let's all go in. Li Hanqing became the focus as soon as he appeared, looking at everyone and speaking. But class monitor, everyone hasn't arrived yet, Chen Song whispered beside him. Who else hasn't come? Zhou Yunqiong and Lu Yuan, they are only 2 people away now. Li Sisi looked around. Yunqiong told me that there was something going on at home and he would come later. Li Hanqing smiled as if showing that his relationship with Zhou Yunqiong was extraordinary. He then continued, as for Lu Yuan, it may have been delayed by waiting for a taxi. His house is already far away. So, let's go first and send him the room number in the class group later. As soon as these words were spoken, Li Sisi, Wang Zibo, and others immediately agreed. Only Chen Song lowered his head slightly. Hey, look, there's a big car coming towards us over there. However, just as everyone was about to enter the door, the girl next to Li Sisi suddenly spoke up. What kind of big car? Is it a Mercedes-Benz G-Class or the latest model from 25 years, costing around 4 million yuan, said Wang Zibo. Don't worry about what other people's cars are, let's go in. Li Hanqing shook his head and urged everyone. The car has come to a stop, and the people inside look very familiar. Chen Song's eyes were sharp, and he twitched his neck to take a closer look. Oh, you still know people who drive big G, they left. Wang Zibo didn't care either. It's really a bit familiar, even Li Sisi spoke. Immediately, everyone stopped moving forward and cast curious glances at the car. Not long after, the car slowly stopped in the parking space, and at the same time, a casually dressed person walked down, about 20 years old, with a straight body, clear eyebrows and eyes, coupled with that handsome face. The whole person had a rebellious and fierce temperament. It's Lu Yuan, I didn't read it wrong, did I? That's right, it's Lu Yuan. Isn't he from an average family? Why did he drive a big G? After thoroughly observing it in front of everyone, a look of shock couldn't help but appear in their eyes, which was quite unexpected. As the former class monitor, Li Hanqing was even more stunned and couldn't believe it. During his college years, Lu Yuan was too low-key. And in all aspects, it was very ordinary and did not attract any attention. The only thing worth discussing was his secret love for Zhou Yunqiong. But now, just 1 year after graduation, the other party quietly drove a car worth over 4 million yuan. The male classmates couldn't help but gather around and curiously scrutinize. Lu Yuan, is this car yours? Wang Zibo quickly walked over, looked here and there, and finally asked. Lu Yuan guessed it would be like this, just nodded. I really don't want to show off my wealth or attract attention, but unfortunately, I only have this one car in my hand. Of course, he did not choose to explain and continued, didn't everyone just go in? Let's go together. Without paying attention to everyone's reactions, he walked into the hotel gate. Amazing. Prince Bodong sighed and whispered, what did you do after graduation? It's not like winning the lottery, is it? In his eyes, it was impossible for a family like the other party to afford such a car unless they had won a prize. Could it really be that student Lu Yuan has great abilities? Li Sisi took the conversation and directly retorted, but her gaze did not leave Lu Yuan's back. Perhaps, but I heard from a friend that renting a luxury car now doesn't cost much in a day. Li Hanqing suddenly spoke up and didn't say much before walking into the hotel gate. All the classmates looked at each other and immediately followed suit. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. The first manifestation of the mutation, Goddess of the University. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. The first manifestation of the mutation, Goddess of the University. The so-called classmate gathering is nothing more than a few things. Eating, singing, and chatting about their respective developments after graduation. As the top 5-star hotel in Shanghai, Yinzhong boasts a wide range of facilities. The room also offers drinks, fruits, expensive wines, and more. It can be said that there is everything. However, there was still one of the most important people who had not arrived, so when everyone entered the pre-booked room, they were mostly chatting. And because of the incident just now, some students couldn't help but approach Lu Yuan. I want to know why he was able to drive a luxury car in just 1 year. Some people also try to explore whether it's possible to bring around the area. The female classmates led by Li Sisi directly asked him if he had a girlfriend. Lu Yuan politely responded to this one by one, but did not want to say much about his own affairs. After all, coming to a classmate gathering, he has other plans, such as building a good relationship with his former classmates, which is completely beyond his consideration. Class monitor Li, look at all the female classmates leaning towards Lu Yuan. In the hotel. Wang Zibo looked at Lu Yuan, who was surrounded, and said, with a hint of helplessness in his eyes. In college, I relied on my lively and bold personality to have a very good reputation among female classmates, but now I can't do it anymore. Everyone is looking towards money. So what? Li Hanqing opened the bottle of wine and sneered, isn't it just renting a car worth around 4 million yuan? When Li Sisi and the others find out, let's see how Lu Yuan will step down. He was naturally very dissatisfied with being snatched away by others, but now he can't say anything and can only drink under his breath. How do you know that Lu Yuan's car was rented? I don't think so. Wang Zibo was a bit puzzled. Let me tell you, Li Hanqing was about to explain, but with a message on his phone, his eyes suddenly lit up. Then he stood up directly, pressed his hand against everyone, and spoke loudly, classmates, please be quiet first. Yun Qiong is already on the way, let's order first. She will arrive soon. As soon as these words were spoken, none of the classmates spoke and quickly walked to the nearby restaurant to start preparing. Zhou Yunqiong is not only the class flower, but also the school flower of the entire university. More importantly, the Wuzhou group of his family ranks high in the entire Shanghai city, with a typical example of Bai Fumei, who is the goddess in the hearts of all male students in universities. So her arrival will naturally attract everyone's attention and not dare to be neglected at all. Seeing this scene, Li Hanqing's originally depressed mood suddenly improved a lot. After all, the only one who has any connection with Zhou Yunqiong now is myself. Think of it here. I couldn't help but glance at Lu Yuan with a hint of pride in my eyes. But Lu Yuan, as if he had not seen it, chose to ignore it and went to the restaurant with everyone. When choosing a location, he didn't sit with those from better families, but instead sat next to Chen Song, smiling and saying, Chen Song, long time no see. Ah Lu, it's been a long time since we last met. Chen Song was taken aback for a moment, then immediately nodded in response. Due to his family background, there was hardly anyone to talk to at the party, and he sat silently on the side. But when Lu Yuan took the initiative to sit aside, he was surprised, especially when he thought of the luxury car he was driving, which made him feel a bit nervous. And then my brain was spinning rapidly, and my relationship with Lu Yuan was average when we were in college. Yeah, it's been over a year now. Lu Yuan naturally understood Chen Song's thoughts, but in fact, the goal of attending the classmate gathering this time was also the other party. Not long after, the dishes were also ordered, and everyone started chatting again. I heard that you haven't found those 2 tourist groups in the Taihang Mountains. Wang Zibo, as an active member, chose to speak up first. I also saw the news. Someone leaked online that they seem to have gone crazy and said they saw a talking tiger. Right. Some people say they found the sea in the mountains. It's really funny. How could there be a sea in the mountains? The classmates all became interested and started chatting about some recent strange things. Do you know the news that the Bodhi tree, the national treasure of India, has been stolen? Laugh to death, nowadays, there are still people stealing trees. It's really strange. What's there? I heard that the Vatican Pope personally knelt down to a teenage boy and said he was an angel to save the world. I also have a video on my phone. Also, the ancient book that caused a stir recently is said to be related to the Tao Te Ching. Definitely, isn't it that Christie's is going to auction that book soon? How's it going? A fool bought it, according to rumors it cost over 30 million yuan. What? Over 30 million? Isn't that foolish? Our domestic experts say it's a forgery, but he actually fell for it. You don't understand. If you don't offer this price, how can you launder money? Li Hanqing took the conversation and believed that the so-called auctions were actually money laundering, especially for things that were obviously worthless and even sold at exorbitant prices. Upon careful consideration, there must be some tricks involved. Yes, it's money laundering, a classmate agreed. And not far away. Upon hearing these conversations, Yuan smiled at the corners of his mouth. Sure enough, in times of information asymmetry, some people don't even understand your way of doing things. But no wonder no one would think that in just 2 months, the world will undergo a transformation, and what everyone mocks will also show true wonders at that time. Of course, Yuan didn't know how to explain this at all. He still held his glass and watched quietly. As for Christie's complete version of the Tao Te Ching, it was naturally he who had it photographed. It was already done the day before yesterday, and now I'm afraid I'm on my way back to my home country. But it's also because of these people's small talk. Let Yuan be more certain that the global upheaval may have begun, but ordinary people are not aware of it. Like the 2 tourist groups in the Taihang Mountains, like the abnormal actions of the Vatican Pope, like the Loch Ness Monster phenomenon previously reported in the news. Generally speaking, it is only considered as a few interesting news stories. But in the eyes of those who have come here, he can taste a different flavor. Jia, and just as everyone talked about their interests. The door of the room was opened, and a faint fragrance rushed in. Everyone turned their heads, their expressions varied, some were surprised, some were amazed, and some had insecure eyes. The newcomer is a woman in her early 20s, with a slender figure, delicate and fair skin, and high hair tied into a ponytail. She exudes a cold aura that makes people dare not approach and blaspheme, like a descending moon palace fairy. Especially with that stunning appearance, it is much stronger than those like Li Sisi. At the moment she appeared, everything seemed to dim. It also caught the attention of everyone in the room. Sorry, I'm late. The woman spoke, her voice like a clear spring in the mountains, refreshing the heart. Classmate Zhou. Zhou Yunqiong is here. Yunqiong. Different titles represent different relationships that used to be different. The last sentence was naturally shouted by Li Hanqing, who looked a bit excited and immediately stood up like a gentleman, then welcomed him. But just as he was about to approach, his heart suddenly trembled and he involuntarily took 2 steps back. Because there is another person behind Zhou Yunqiong. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Achieving the Purpose, Inheriting a Small Ding from a Family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Achieving the Purpose, Inheriting a Small Ding from a Family. That is a middle-aged man like an iron tower. Wearing a black suit, it appears to be 2 meters tall. He stood behind Zhou Yunqiong, with a dark face and sharp eyes. Even if not speaking, it gives people a strong sense of oppression and they want to stay away as much as possible. No wonder Li Hanqing took 2 steps back. This is Uncle Zhua. My family is worried that I won't be safe alone outside, so they let him accompany me. Zhou Yunqiong smiled at the corners of her mouth and explained to everyone not to be afraid, with a friendly tone in her tone. So it's like this. Li Hanqing let out a dry laugh, concealing his embarrassment, and then turned his head and said, Yunqiong is here. Everyone is welcome. Welcome. Yunqiong, you have finally arrived. But we're in a hurry, sit down, sit down. Almost everyone in the room stood up, with smiles on their faces and very polite. Zhou Yunqiong's family background is well known to her classmates, and in today's society, having money and a background naturally earns everyone's respect, and everyone greets her. As for Uncle Zhai, everyone knows he belongs to the category of bodyguards. Of course, Lu Yuan was different from others, still sitting in place, drinking and drinking without any intention of getting up. This scene immediately made some people frown slightly, feeling that his score was somewhat exaggerated, right? Even if you are developed now, can you compare to Zhou Yunxiong's family background? However, Zhou Yunxiong didn't mind at all. At the invitation of everyone, he took the main seat in the room. At this moment, all the dishes were served, but of course no one dared to pick up the chopsticks first and everyone was waiting. We're all classmates, don't be so polite, let's eat. Zhou Yunxiong smiled faintly and then took the initiative to talk about some things from college, which made the atmosphere start to heat up. She is very beautiful, although she has a cool temperament, she shows a friendly side at this moment. Soon, some students relaxed their constraints and responded slightly. Of course, the topic still revolves around Zhou Yunxiong. If it were in college, this situation would definitely not have happened, after all, they had not entered society at that time. But now it's different. After being whipped by reality, I finally understand what reality is. Some female classmates are thinking about whether to establish a good relationship with each other. If you could get the opportunity to work at Wuzhou Group, even if it's just a subsidiary, it would be enough to change your destiny. You should know, this is a big group in Shanghai that can rank in the top 3. So, many people take the initiative to toast, exchange glasses, and offer various forms of hospitality. The most active among them are Li Hansheng and Wang Zibo. Tell the other person about interesting stories from college. Zhou Yunxiong couldn't help but smile, which made the lights in the room pale. Do you remember, in the first semester of his freshman year, it was like in the afternoon when Lu Yuan walked into the classroom with a bouquet of flowers and said he wanted to confess his love to Zhou. A female classmate chatted and said this. For a moment, the room suddenly quieted down, and I couldn't help but turn my head. But at this moment, Lu Yuan lowered his head and silently ate in front of everyone's gaze, ignoring it. This scene made everyone couldn't help but feel suspicious. Lu Yuan liked Zhou Yunxiong for 4 years. It's something that everyone knows, but when we meet now, why hasn't the other person reacted at all? Shouldn't he be the most attentive one? Zhou Yunxiong looked over and furrowed her brows slightly. She had actually noticed that since she entered the door, only Lu Yuan among her classmates had not taken the initiative to speak, not even raising her head, and it was terrifyingly quiet. It's clearly not the other person's personality that's right. It's all over, let's talk about something else. Zhou Yunxiong spoke up, shifting the topic while giving Lu Yuan a deep glance. Classmate Lu, it was a great gathering, why didn't you even chat with everyone? At this moment, Chen Song sitting next to him whispered, feeling strange. Didn't you also say a few words? Lu Yuan answered with a calm tone. He had no interest in this kind of gathering and would not have wasted time unless something happened. Me. Chen Song was taken aback for a moment, then lowered his head and remained silent. His family was the worst among his classmates, and he felt insecure. Wherever he went, he was just a companion, ordinary and inconspicuous. Even if we propose to leave suddenly now, no one will care. Of course, Lu Yuan understood this, so he didn't ask much. But instead, he chatted with Chen Song without saying a word, and then inquired a little about family matters. So time slowly passed, and everyone was full. Li Hansheng proposed singing and received unanimous agreement. They booked the most luxurious suite at Yunzhong Hotel, with a karaoke room next to it. Classmate Lu, let's go over too. Watching his classmates rushing towards the nearby room, Chen Song also stood up. It's not urgent. Lu Yuan shook his head and said, I remember your family has a family heirloom, which is an ancient small cauldron, right? Yeah, it's still in my dad's box now. What's wrong? Chen Song was taken aback, nodded, and continued, "Is Mr. Lu interested in that thing?" "Not bad." Lu Yuan did not deny and finally stated the purpose of his trip. Attending a classmate gathering or something is just a side trip. What he is truly interested in is the ancient small cauldron of Chen Song's family. Although it is not a treasure, nor is it like an ancient Bodhi tree that would bring terrifying benefits to oneself after a global mutation, it is an extremely mysterious thing that is closely related to a series of subsequent plans and is very important. Upon hearing these words, Chen Song couldn't help but hesitate. "I know someone once offered 200,000 yuan to buy that small cauldron, but your father didn't agree." Lu Yuan interrupted the other party and continued. "I can offer a higher price. I just talked about that your father has diabetes and his family has a lot of living expenses. I must need some money to turn it around, right?" "But what else does Chen Song want to say?" 500,000. Lu Yuan extended 3 fingers and said, "And I can give you 300,000 as a deposit right away." After speaking, he stopped speaking and chose to wait quietly. At such times, he couldn't be too anxious. "The reason why I was so patient before was because I wanted to prescribe the right medicine. Identify the needs of others and then open up a bid. This is the wisest." Indeed, Lu Yuan has a lot of money to continue adding, but since there is a better way, why not use it? "I want to go back and discuss with my dad." Chen Song opened his mouth, obviously frightened by that number, and his family really needed such a sum of money. However, he did not immediately agree, indicating that he would go back to discuss it. "Give me your bank card number first." Lu Yuan smiled and asked the other party to provide their card number, then directly transferred 300,000 yuan and said, "I'll wait for your message." After finishing these, he nodded slightly towards the other person and walked straight out of the room. He knew that the purpose of his trip had almost been achieved. "Hey, student Lu, aren't you going to sing?" "No, there's something else." End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Wuzhou Group, Mysterious Bloodline. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Wuzhou Group, Mysterious Bloodline. In the room, Chen Song looked at the balance on his mobile banking and couldn't help but be in a daze. Until now, he still feels a bit incredulous. One sentence. Just transfer the money directly. What are you doing? Let's go sing together. At this moment, Li Hansheng, who was in charge of shouting, came over and urged, "Where is Lu Yuan?" Chen Song finally realized and recounted what had just happened, but his tone trembled with excitement. "What are you thinking? 500,000 yuan can be easily taken out. Maybe Lu Yuan is intentionally teasing you." Li Hansheng, who had some opinions about Lu Yuan because he was snatched from the limelight, spoke up and advised the other party to be careful, preferably not to believe it. "I don't know," Chen Songdao said, "because Mr. Lu really transferred a deposit of 300,000 yuan to me." As soon as Li Hansheng said this, he stood completely stunned. "I can easily transfer out 300,000 yuan, which is already the price of my BMW car outside at the same time." Zhou Yunxiong also saw this scene. However, her gaze was focused on the direction in which Lu Yuan had left, as if lost in thought. At the hotel entrance. Just as Lu Yuan walked out, he felt his phone shaking. There are 2 messages sent by different people. Rongsheng Real Estate Manager. "Hello Mr. Lu, the contract for the farm you purchased has already been signed." Lawyer Wang. "Mr. Lu, your donation of 10 million yuan has been agreed upon by Longhu Mountain, and we invite you to come and select a layman dojo when you have time." "Thank you. Have you all taken care of it?" "See here." A smile appeared on Lu Yuan's face. Although the process was not smooth sailing, it ultimately succeeded. Immediately, he didn't think much and prepared to go to the parking lot. Lu Yuan. But soon, a cold voice sounded on its own. Turning around, Zhou Yunxiong walked out at some point, followed by the man from the left book. Is there anything wrong? Lu Yuan stopped and didn't choose to ignore it. After all, this woman is not ordinary. It's nothing. Zhou Yunqiang moved forward, gathering the green hair in her ears, causing passers-by around to glance sideways. She is indeed so beautiful that she attracts attention wherever she goes, but Uncle's was standing beside her can completely dispel the thoughts of passers-by who dare to approach. But Zhou Yunqiang didn't care about these things, just whispered, I haven't seen you a year after graduation. You have changed a lot compared to before. Each other, like before, you wouldn't even initiate conversations with me, said Lu Yuan with a calm tone. Upon hearing this, the latter's expression slightly changed. But soon he smiled and continued, who said it's not? For Zhou Yunqiang, since her birth, almost everyone has revolved around her. Her words and attitude are not ignored by anyone, and even loved and cherished by her parents. And she also enjoys this feeling very much, from childhood to most years. In its concept, I can ignore others on my own, but no one can ignore me. Just like today, Lu Yuan, who had always cared about her during his college years, this attitude made Zhou Yunqiang feel a bit uncomfortable. So in the end, it was decided to see if the other person was genuine or indulging in their desires. If there's nothing else, then I'll leave. Lu Yuan could sense her thoughts, but he had no interest and spoke up. This action finally made Zhou Yunqiang frown uncontrollably, but she was good at concealing her emotions. Actually, I have always known that your family conditions are very good, and even outstanding. The reason why I didn't agree to you in college was just because I felt that we were not from the same world. At this moment, Zhou Yunqiang was eager to turn the tide and took the initiative to talk about college. As for Lu Yuan's family background, she couldn't hide it from her. In other words, it is impossible to conceal the Wuzhou group behind her. Have you finished speaking? May I leave now? Lu Yuan really didn't want to listen to the other party's nonsense, and there was nothing to say. He turned around and prepared to leave. After the global upheaval, I struggled at the bottom for 10 years and experienced various cruelties. This kind of emotion has long been forgotten. Lu Yuan. Finally, Zhou Yunqiang couldn't control her emotions and said directly, I just want to give you a message. Go ahead and have a good life. There will be many changes in the future, and everything will be very unfamiliar, no longer the familiar appearance you are familiar with. Mississippi. But when she still wants to continue speaking. The left uncle next to him suddenly took a step forward and silently shook his head. And what about Lu Yuan? Still not stopping, keep moving forward. But just now, he completely heard Zhou Yunqiang's words. It seems that some people have already mastered, and even confirmed, the global changes, and the Zhou family is one of them. And this group of people may have been secretly preparing and accumulating strength for a long time. Lu Yuan pondered in his heart that he had gained a lot from those words just now. The Zhou family, as well as the Wuzhou group behind them, are extremely mysterious. In the previous life, I only thought of myself as an ordinary group enterprise. However, after experiencing a mutation, Wuzhou quickly rose to power, and the Zhou family emerged in large numbers, shaking the world and being unfathomable. I thought it was thanks to the resources of the Wuzhou group that the Zhou family achieved this step. But now it doesn't seem like that. Otherwise, Zhou Yunqiang wouldn't have said such a thing just now, and Lu Yuan speculates that mysterious forces like the Zhou family are probably not uncommon both domestically and globally. Of course. He has no worries or fears about these things in his heart. Because of oneself, possessing a powerful advantage that no one else has, and having a clear understanding of the subsequent events. Where there are good things, where there are treasures, and where there will be creation, Lu Yuan is all clear. As long as you grasp all of this. What Zhou family? What big power? He can be fearless and confident in himself. So Lu Yuan didn't say anything, just got on the car and drove away from the hotel. Miss, you just revealed a bit too much. At this moment, Uncle Zhai couldn't help but say helplessly. I made a mistake. Upon hearing this, Zhou Yunqiang nodded and took a deep breath before completely calming down. In the next moment, she once again became as cold and distant as before. Miss, I'm a bit puzzled. Why do you want to be with these people? Although you have a classmate relationship, what about it? After all, you are different from them. Your bloodline is the strongest in our Zhou family's generations. As soon as the time comes, you will be the proud daughter of heaven. Uncle Zhai thought for a moment and continued, whether those people in the hotel can survive in the future is a question. Even if we survive, the gap with you will continue to grow, unpredictable. He spoke with a hint of superiority in his tone. Of course I know. Zhou Yunqiang smiled and extended her arm. Under the sunshine, it emitted a faint golden radiance, somewhat dreamy. But as she withdrew her hand, everything that had just happened completely disappeared. She turned her head to look at the hotel and whispered, It's just that I've been bored lately. Upon hearing this, Uncle Zhai smiled, but as his phone shook, he glanced at the news and his expression immediately changed slightly. Miss, there is a place where someone has taken the lead in buying the land that the homeowner instructed you to buy. How could such a thing happen? Zhou Yunqiang was also somewhat surprised and asked, Where is it? The farm on the outskirts of Wuzhou city. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Jubao Zhai 6th floor, Black Market. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Jubao Zhai 6th floor, Black Market, is that right? Upon hearing this, Zhou Yunqiang frowned. Should I go see what the situation is and buy it back? Uncle Zhai spoke up, after all, it was previously explained by the head of the family. If it was missed, it would definitely not be good. So he had to buy it back. As for who the farm belonged to now, he didn't care in his heart. With the strength of the Wuzhou group, as long as it wasn't for those major forces, he could easily capture it without any trouble. Forget it, we have already bought enough. The distribution of star meteor land is too wide, and missing a piece of land is not a big deal. Zhou Yunqiang stopped and continued, besides, there are very few meteorites that fall on the belt outside the starry sky that will carry extraterrestrial divine objects. A few months ago, Wuzhou Group conducted a dedicated research and discovered that there would be a millennium-old meteor shower in the near future. The Zhou family speculated that some of the meteorites may contain extraterrestrial artifacts. So let people calculate the location where the meteorite fell. Then buy directly at a high price. In fact, the Zhou family has been buying land all over the world for many years, largely for this reason. They just thought that there would be extraterrestrial gods descending on the earth, and after years of effort, they also obtained a few pieces, but that's all, most of which were in vain. Zhou Yunqiang's idea is also very simple, and she does not believe that this meteorite will be any different. And one more thing, some forces are also secretly competing with the Zhou family. A big change is coming soon. At such times, stability is still the top priority. Yes. Since the young lady had already spoken, Uncle Zhai naturally wouldn't have any objections and continued, Miss, what are we going to do next? They came out for a long time, thinking whether or not to return to the hotel. Forget it, let's go. Zhou Yunqiang shook her head, then turned around and walked out of the door, clearly not wanting to go back. There is no intention of explaining to those so-called classmates at all. Even the impact that Lu Yuan gang had just brought to her was quickly and completely ignored. As just mentioned. Ultimately, they are people from two different worlds. After driving away from the Yunzhong Hotel, Lu Yuan did not return to the villa in the north of the city, but choose to go to another place. However, on the way, he received a message from Chen Song on his phone. Chen Song. Classmate Lu, I just called my dad to discuss and we can sell that item to you. Please come and pick it up when you want. Lu Yuan. Let's find some time to meet in the next few days. After replying to the message, directly transferred the remaining 200,000 to the other party. Chen Song is an honest person, and his family is also like this, so there is no need to worry about running away. With his current wealth, even if the other party is careful, he can quickly find it. Subsequently, Lu Yuan continued to drive and reminisced about what he had done recently. In fact, except for the ancient Bodhi tree, including the complete version of Christie's Tao Te Ching, as well as Chen Song's family heirloom cauldron, one can find someone to steal them all back without any effort. But he doesn't want to do this. The reason is simple. Not everyone is trustworthy. The Centipede organization has strong handling abilities and there is no need to be afraid to reveal information. But if we keep hiring that group of people, leaving aside the issue of price, simply doing too much can easily attract attention. Even being backlash, after all, those people are licking blood on the tip of their knives, very fierce. Another point is that Lu Yuan wants to be secretive enough to avoid being detected while doing these things. Just like buying land and donating to Longhu Mountain, he doesn't look for different people, just to not leave a handle and not arouse any suspicion. There are less than 2 months left until the global upheaval, and time is too tight. If something unexpected happens, it means that all previous efforts will be in vain. Therefore, Lu Yuan is more willing to trouble and must be cautious. Thinking in this way, Lu Yuan drove all the way. Until reaching a road on the outer ring of Shanghai, the car stopped next to a building. The building is antique, with cornices and arch of wooden architecture, full of ancient Chinese style. It has 5 floors. The main body is not reinforced concrete, but wooden. There are 2 stone statues of mythical wild animals weighing several tons outside the gate, which are vivid. One can imagine the background of such a building in Shanghai. After getting off the car, Lu Yuan walked to the entrance of the building and looked up at the plaque. There are 3 big characters in the book. Jubao Zhai. The strokes are vigorous and powerful, with dragons and phoenixes dancing. Without further ado, I walked straight into the door. The first floor is spacious, with various seats and screens placed inside. Come to the front desk. Without saying a word, he spoke directly, "Hello, I need to go up to the 6th floor." The receptionist at the front desk was wearing a qipao, with a pleasing appearance and excellent temperament. Upon hearing this, she smiled slightly and said, "I'm sorry sir, our Jubao studio doesn't have a 6th floor." Lu Yuan didn't say much, took out a black gold card from his pocket and placed it on the front desk. The receptionist looked at her with a change in gaze, a respectful tone, and a hint of allure. "Originally a VIP, sir, please follow me." "Say it." She walked out, slightly bowing and walking ahead with seductive movements. With appreciation in his eyes, Lu Yuan took the black gold card and slowly followed behind. Jubao Zhai. To outsiders, it is just a place for dining and socializing, with relatively high consumption and belonging to a private club. But in reality, it's not simple. This is actually an underground trading point, which can be called a black market in simpler terms. Inside, you can purchase various items that are not allowed to be traded on the surface. But first of all, you need to have at least 100 million worth, and it's in cash. Secondly, it is necessary to pay a membership fee of over 1 million yuan per year. Yes, it is just a membership fee. So there are very few who know and are qualified to enter it. Coincidentally, Lu Yuan is one of them. Quickly, guided by the receptionist, we walked through the aisles and finally arrived at an elevator with only 1 floor, the 6th floor. But when the 2 of them walked in and the elevator started, it turned out to be going downwards. That's right. The 6th floor is not above, but underground. Not long after, the elevator door opened and Lu Yuan walked down, while the receptionist stayed inside. The position where he stood had a long corridor with dim lighting, but when he walked out, it was a huge place. Similar to a bar, but larger and with brighter lighting, each seat is made of precious wood and placed outside, each worth at least hundreds of thousands or more. This is the 6th floor of Jubao Studio. But there aren't many people, only a dozen or so. Of course, everyone who can come here, except for the service staff, is a billionaire. Huh, Mr. Liu, it's been several days since we last saw each other. My spirit is even stronger than before. Suddenly, a middle-aged fat man in a suit and leather shoes walked over with a cheerful smile on his face. This is the manager of the 6th floor of Jubao Studio, surnamed Lin. Manager Lin, there's no need for small talk or anything else. Lu Yuan stopped and got straight to the point. Where was the thing I asked for last time? Did you help me find it? End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Ghost Seal, Unexpected Harvest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Ghost Seal, Unexpected Harvest. Mr. Liu is still unclear about my ability to handle affairs at Jubao Studio. Manager Lin smiled and said, "Don't worry, it's already done." Speaking, he made a gesture of invitation. Sign to sit down and then talk. Lu Yuan nodded and then found a nearby location with strong privacy. Manager Lin asked someone to prepare tea and leave first, obviously to get the thing he needed. Seeing this, Lu Yuan was not in a hurry and took a light sip of his tea. The tea has a light taste and a lingering fragrance in the mouth. Although he doesn't understand tea, he also knows that it's expensive and most families can't afford it. This is also normal. People who can reach the 6th floor are either wealthy or wealthy, and the Jubao Studio will naturally bring out the best things to entertain them. Mr. Liu, I have kept you waiting for a long time. Quickly, Manager Lin returned with a tray in his hand, covered with a red cloth, and said, "This is what you want," and the seller is also very happy. Upon hearing these words, Lu Yuan nodded and didn't speak, directly lifting the red cloth. On that tray, there is a square seal placed. Not big, about 10 inches. The whole body is dark, with a rustic atmosphere. Above, there is also an unknown ferocious beast carved, seemingly staring directly at people, with an ominous smell. That's right, that's it. Lu Yuan glanced at it and was very satisfied. This seal is basically the same as what I saw in my last life. There are no issues with even the details. It can be determined. Okay. Manager Lin smiled and said, "After the payment is settled, this item will belong to Mr. Liu. Don't worry." Lu Yuan took out his phone, operated it, and directly transferred the remaining 10 million to his account in Jubao Building. Upon seeing this, Manager Lin poured him another cup of tea and continued, "Mr. Liu, it's not that I'm being too talkative. This thing has an evil spirit that most collectors wouldn't be interested in. You spent 15 million, it's really not worth it. Although it may not be good to say so, is it an ordinary person who can become the manager of the 6th floor of Jubao Studio?" Manager Lin's words were completely putting himself in the shoes of a friend. 4. It can better bring the relationship closer. After all, only by being friends with each other can we speak in this way. Evil nature. If there is evil, that's right. This thing is not even used by living people. Lu Yuan chuckled lightly in his heart, because only he knew now that this object was called the Ghost Seal, which seemed nothing special, just an ordinary antique. But in fact, it has a very big origin and has a great relationship with the mausoleum of the first Qin Emperor. If I had not been lucky enough to participate in the previous life, I would not have known what the Ghost Seal was. If you have to say anything, it is one of the keys to open the mausoleum of the first Qin Emperor. 15 million. Buying this Ghost Seal is a guaranteed profit, but it's just not worth it in the eyes of those who don't know. Regarding the mausoleum of the Qin Emperor, various legends have never ceased. It can almost be said to be one of the most mysterious places in the whole of China, but no one has ever been able to explore the truth. The reason is, that place is impossible for outsiders to enter, even with a design plan, unless all the keys are collected. Otherwise, if you break in recklessly, you will die 10 times and have no life. But now, including this ghost seal, Lu Yuan has already obtained 2 keys, and the other one is Chen Song's family heirloom small cauldron. Of course, he won't have any explanation for this matter, just smiled and took a sip of tea before continuing. Thank you very much, Manager Lin, for reminding me that I have a personal hobby. By the way, I wonder if there are any other novel objects on the 6th floor recently. Lu Yuan thought that the Jubao Tower was home to various non-tradable items from across the country. The ghost seal was discovered here, so I want to try my luck again. Of course. He didn't have very high expectations about it either. Even after the global upheaval, there are very few things that can be transformed into gods, not to say that as long as they are antiques, they must be extraordinary. Otherwise, if you have other things to do, just collect various antiques. Of course. Manager Lin's eyes lit up and he knew there was still business. He took out a pre-prepared brochure from his arms and said, "It's all here. Mr. Lu can take your time to read it. If you're interested, just let me know and I promise to help you handle everything. After every transaction is completed on the 6th floor, as a manager, there is a commission." He is certainly very attentive. Lu Yuan nodded and opened the picture album to look at it. As expected, there are various ancient artifacts on top. With the reputation of the 6th floor of Jubao Studio, we can naturally guarantee that everything is genuine. He just flipped through it for a long time and didn't get what he wanted. Not long after. Lu Yuan paused and immediately prepared to return the picture album. But soon, his eyes suddenly changed slightly and he noticed a small tower on the last page. The small tower has a total of 11 floors. Although it has been eroded by time, from high-definition photos, it can be seen that it is well preserved without any damage. And it was this small tower that plunged Lu Yuan into memories. It was a great battle that could change the terrain of mountains and rivers. He had watched the battle from a distance. One of them, while exerting his power, had a vision that was almost identical to that of a small tower. Notice. Even after the global upheaval, it still belongs to one of the top powerhouses. Now, I have seen this thing again. My thoughts come to this. Lu Yuan raised his head and spoke directly, "Manager Lin, what is this?" "Well, that's right." Manager Lin glanced at it for a moment before speaking again. "This thing is called the 11 Blood Floating Butcher. According to the seller, it was blood red when unearthed, and it is said that there is also an ancient monk buried next to it. After our appraisal, it should have a history of nearly 2,000 years. Why? Are you interested?" Pagoda, also known as floating slaughter in Buddhist language. As the monk often says, saving a person's life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. Yes. Lu Yuan nodded and said, "Can you help me contact this seller? The price is negotiable. I am naturally aware of your strength, but this seller is not easy to handle and there is a problem." Manager Lin frowned and explained, "That person works in real estate. He was originally quite wealthy, but later he had financial problems and his wealth plummeted. So he wanted to sell this thing for a turnover of 20 million yuan, but not long ago, he borrowed money from the bank. So the phone call I just received yesterday said that this level 11 blood float will no longer be sold and should be kept for collection. Is that so?" Lu Yuan's heart sank. I looked again and confirmed that this thing was indeed the same as the anomaly exhibited by the strong person. After the big war, he even made a special inquiry and was finally told that this vision was due to the melting of a divine object, which merged into the 5 organs and 6 viscera. It can open up human treasures, stimulate potential, and make the 5 organs and 6 viscera as indestructible as divine gold. And the 11th level blood float slaughter corresponds to the 5 organs and 6 viscera, right? So since it must be this thing, that's right. At first, Lu Yuan sighed for a while, wondering why he hadn't been so natural. Now, things are right in front of us. Do you want to miss it? End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Immortal Descendants, Mending the Heavenly Stove at Midday. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 10 Immortal Descendants, Mending the Heavenly Stove at Midday. Yuan was pondering and finally shook his head. No way. Absolutely not. In my previous life, I struggled at the bottom for a full 10 years and was humble for 10 years. Now that there is an opportunity, no matter what, we cannot choose to give up. If you're not sure now, without mentioning whether there will be any regrets, it will be even more difficult to obtain after the mutation. With this in mind, Yuan looked up and continued, I really have a crush on this thing. Could you please do me a favor and help me schedule an appointment with that seller? After everything is done, I will definitely be grateful. He doesn't know who the other party is, so he can only ask Jubao Zhai to mediate. Where did Mr. Liu say that? Manager Lin spoke up and said, you are our VIP, and it is our responsibility to serve you. Since you have spoken up, I will definitely give it a try. However, Mr. Liu still needs to be mentally prepared. This seller was not sincere at first, and the offer of 20 million yuan alone was a bit excessive. Some customers had also approached him, but in the end, he was still reluctant to accept it. Not willing to give up. Yuan smiled and said, that's because he hasn't met a buyer like me. 11-level blood floating butcher is too important, and he will never forget the scene from the beginning until now. As long as you take it, 20 million or something, it's nothing at all. Okay, Mr. Liu, just wait for my message. Manager Lin noticed Yuan's determination to succeed and immediately nodded, indicating that he would do his best to complete it. Subsequently, the two chatted for a while again. Seeing that there was nothing needed, Yuan picked up the ghost seal and got up and left the 6th floor. After leaving the Jubao studio, the sun is about to set. Driving into the car, he headed towards another place, still not a villa in the north of the city, but an old urban area located in the outer ring. On the way, Yuan specifically stopped the car and bought some fruits, which were not expensive and very ordinary. Approaching 7 o'clock. The car came to a bungalow. There is also a courtyard outside the bungalow, and you can see waves of green smoke inside from the outside. If you smell it carefully, you will find a hint of traditional Chinese medicine flavor in those green smoke. Mr. Gu, I came uninvited again. Pushing open the door, Yuan lifted the bag on his handle and smiled, I also bought you some fruits. At this moment, in the courtyard, there was a skinny old man in his 60s or 70s, holding a fan and constantly stirring up the medicine jar in front of him. After seeing Yuan, he just lifted his eyelids and then focused on boiling medicine, saying, in his mouth, not enthusiastic. Regarding this, the latter is not surprising. After placing the fruit on the table, he came over to pick up the fan and took on the task of boiling medicine. Mr. Gu frowned, but after all, he didn't say much. He walked to the rocking chair next to him and lay down, but there was no intention of speaking. However, Yuan was slightly surprised in his heart. Since his rebirth, he has come every day. On the first day, the old man threw him out directly. As time went by, not only could he enter the door later, but now he no longer cares about giving gifts and helping with work. For Yuan, this can be considered a good signal, at least his persistence has been effective. In fact, he is not related to Mr. Gu, and he doesn't even know him before. The reason for coming here and building closer relationships is certainly purposeful. It's just that I haven't shown it yet. At this moment, he is like a kind-hearted junior, helping the old man to make medicine and do things. One old and one young, one sitting and one lying down. Finally, the old man couldn't sit still and sat up straight, saying, all right, Xiaolu, the medicine is almost done. You should go home too. It's okay, I'm not short of this time, Yuan smiled and continued to sit in place. This made Grandpa Gu very helpless and continued to speak, Xiaolu, I know your family is not bad and you have also gone to college. Do you also believe the rumors outside that my family is some descendant of Guhong? Guhong, also known as Biopuzi, is a famous alchemist in Chinese history with great fame. It is said that he was a fairy. But he also has a more famous relative, Gu Xian, one of the four great heavenly masters. Legends may not be credible at times, but perhaps they are true. Lu Yuan smiled and said, "Of course, I've been helping you with things these days, and that's not why." Really? The old man didn't believe it. Take it seriously. Lu Yuan answered firmly, but his eyes casually glanced at a medicine stove located not far from the yard. The medicine stove is not large, with 3 legs and no lid. It is about the size of a basketball, but it can be seen that it is an antique. However, it is not well preserved and placed randomly, so the patterns on it have been smoothed out, making it impossible to determine the specific age. In the eyes of ordinary people, that medicine stove is worth at most 180 yuan. But in fact, only Lu Yuan knew that this object was unusual and a divine one. It may seem ordinary, but it is a minority. Before the global upheaval, there were all kinds of mysterious things. Because its real name is the Zi Wu Bu Tian Lu, which was used by Gu Xianweng to refine pills. As for why Lu Yuan knew, of course, because of this, he had obtained it before. It is precisely because of this thing that I was able to persist for a full 10 years in the post-global environment, and the process of obtaining it was also a coincidence, going through many hardships, and it was also because of this furnace that Lu Yuan was ultimately killed. Until death, he was unable to fully utilize the true function of repairing the heavenly stove at noon. It can be said to be one of his major regrets. Now, it's the time to make up for it. However, besides the stove, Lu Yuan also had another purpose. Of course, this cannot be said out loud, as it would be too obvious and annoying. Mr. Gu, he has inquired and found out that although he doesn't have much money, he is stubborn and has a strange temper, which is why he didn't directly use money to solve problems. When dealing with such people, one should trade sincerity for sincerity. Okay, let's believe you for now. Mr. Gu shook his head, and although he said so, he obviously didn't take it seriously and continued to lie down. Lu Yuan didn't mind either, he patiently boiled the medicine. So, time passed by bit by bit. The last day was completely dark. The medicine has also been prepared. Old man, it's already good. Remember to eat the fruit, it's good for your health, so I'll go back first. Lu Yuan stood up and walked out of the yard without looking back. This young man, Grandpa Gu, hesitated for a moment, wanting to get angry, and finally whispered, "I don't even drink a sip of tea." After leaving that old city area, Lu Yuan is finally preparing to return to the villa, but the journey is a bit long and needs to pass through the city center. At this moment, sitting in the car, he sorted out his plans and looked at the city full of neon lights. It's very lively and calm, as if it will continue indefinitely. But Lu Yuan is very clear. In over a month, everything will change. Skyscrapers will collapse, cities will be destroyed, and heaven and earth will be completely transformed. The new era is an opportunity, but for most people, it is also an unprecedented disaster. Quickly, approaching 10 o'clock. Lu Yuan finally arrived home, but when he stopped the car and walked into the yard, he couldn't help but be taken aback. End of this chapter.